Welcome to Still Growing in Grace, a program dedicated to inspiring joy, giving hope, and delighting in grace. I'm Mike Zenker, and I'll be sharing with you a message of hope that will expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. God already deeply loves you, totally accepts you, and really, really likes you. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, your community church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. After all, none of us have actually arrived. And so that is what this program is about. Recognizing that we will learn and unlearn things and continue to mature in topics that we thought we knew more about than we did. Like the one we're going to talk about today, forgiveness. So the topic is, why is forgiveness so important? Now, this is a rebroadcast. I was on an interview with Sheri Pallas and Garcia last night, and I received permission to reshare it here because I want this audience to see and hear this conversation as well. And this topic is dear to my heart, as you all know. So again, I've had conversations with Sheri and Anna many times. Love her program, and worth watching. She covers really radical topics, and it's worth checking out her channel. You'll see the links below in the description. So make sure you go look at her previous interviews and programs, because she's got a lot of really amazing people, and the topics are really, really wide. So you're going to find out a lot of really cool stuff. But for this particular topic, we had planned this topic a couple weeks back, and then this whole war in Israel kind of started with the bombardment from Hamas first, and then the retaliation, and what we're seeing now is a big mess. Lots of violence, lots of anger, pain, grief, you name it. And so this topic of forgiveness, well, let's just say we cover this in the conversation, but it sort of relates to the conflict, but I think it's way too soon to even have that conversation right now while the conflict is on. Because I think, as you're going to hear from the conversation, this topic of forgiveness isn't so much about a circumstance as it is about our individual hearts and what the soil of our heart is like. We never talked about the soil part because I just thought of it now. As I realized that it's like tilling our soil of our heart. If it's been really hard and dry and parched, it's really hard to till up hard ground. So sometimes we need to have our heart softened, and the Holy Spirit can do it in many different ways. Sometimes a crisis, sometimes a loving touch of a friend, sometimes the gentle smile of a stranger. Who knows? But I want to share this conversation. It's about an hour long, but worth it. So I'm just resharing her program, and then we'll come back on when this is done. All right. Enjoy this.
Okay. Let's meet our guests and get smarter. For those who follow the show, these two people you already know because they're dear friends. First, we have Anna Garcia Lucas. Anna was born and raised in New Mexico. She is a mother, wife, veteran, and a survivor. She earned her MDiv at Episcopal Divinity School and Bexley Seabury Seminary. She's in the middle of her Lutheran year at Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, and she is a Reformed Roman Catholic, spiritual mystic, usually a heretic, a lover of coffee, music, green chili, and jokes. Welcome, Anna. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay. For the audience, right now, Anna is driving because she's that committed to being on this show. So she's coming home from work, and she will join us at home. So you'll be able to see her at that point. Okay, next we have my favorite heckler, Mike Zenker. Mike began pastoral ministry. He's actually cheering backstage too as I say this. Mike began pastoral ministry in 1990 and has served as a senior pastor of Hope Fellowship Community Church in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, since December of 2003. Mike launched Growing in Grace Ministries Canada in 2006, which is a teaching and training ministry focused on identity in Christ and understanding forgiveness. Mike's trials in life have helped him on the journey of unlearning religion and discovering a greater grace. He serves as a fire department chaplain, long-term care home chaplain, and funeral home chaplain, providing hope, love, and light to those walking through dark times. Welcome, Mike.
Hey. Hi, Anna.
Hey.
I'm so glad you are both here. This is a big topic, and
Yeah.
especially with what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now. We actually had some comments about how topical and poignant this conversation is.
I saw that.
Yeah. So, and Mike, we booked this show weeks ago, so I think it's always timely, but especially now. And one of the things I want to start with is what prevents us from forgiving. And I think that one of the things that has come up in my head over the last few days of planning for this show is blame. And when we continue to blame, we are unable to forgive. So can we start there of, why if we continue to blame, why that's really bad and how we need to forgive?
I think there's a pretty good list of things we can come up with why we don't forgive. But I didn't know we'd talk about that. I would have had that list ready. So
I don't prepare my guests very well.
Do this like a recipe. Just throw in a dash of this, make it your own. We'll spice it up as we see fit, and we will serve it to the audience as a form of nourishment. How's that?
I love it.
Here, I have a hunch that blame is definitely one of the reasons, because I think this topic of forgiveness is like a wheel with many spokes. Each spoke is a certain topic or category that needs to be investigated, researched, unpacked, and such. So the why we don't forgive, it's a big one. And I think the blame is part of that, but I also think another reason is we also have a complete misunderstanding of what forgiveness is. Like, the misconceptions are also one of the greatest hindrances.
Totally.
Yes.
We when we talked about this, I think about a year ago, we talked about what forgiveness was and walk through all of that. So yeah, I do want to focus on why it is important, but I also want to tie in again what's preventing us from doing this. And Mike's canceling his PowerPoints right now and cursing me.
No. I've got. In fact, let me start with this. I'm gonna throw one onto the screen, because this is connected to the misunderstanding. So let me see if I can share a screen. Well, let me window. Yes. So I'm gonna hit share. Basically, each of us have a laptop or computer, and we type, right? So I went to typing class in high school, so I learned how to actually type instead of this. And so I did learn that you're supposed to put your fingers on a certain set of letters. So the A, S, D, F, and J, K, L, the hyphen, whatever, right? That's how you're supposed to type. So I can look at something over to my left, and I can type something, a sentence. So let's say I'm going to type this word, this idea: the love of God is never ending. So I'm typing in the love of God is never ending, but I didn't have my fingers on the right place. So I'm off by one. And here's what it looks like. I won. But I typed.
You said we were speaking in tongues. So
So, but the point here is, if our understanding definition is incorrect or off, we're going to be garbled. We're not going to deal with the real issue. And so it does come back to some foundational things of what is forgiveness, but that is also a hindrance of why we can't forgive. Why is it so important? Well, we're going to get into all that too, I know, but man, that's just my thought.
Yeah, Anna, you've been just providing some comic relief, but what are your thoughts on this before we go any further?
Lots of thoughts. Primarily right now, my thoughts on why Anna can't forgive certain things is kind of alluding to what Mike said. For me, it is like a tapestry. I pull one thread and another comes out and a hole opens up, and all of a sudden I have all these fringes of things that created the reasons of why I'm in a state of unforgiveness. Through some of the work I've been doing at school, I've read a book, and I don't have access to the author now. I'll get that to you when I get home. Recalling Our Stories, and it's how to re-author the myths in our lives and what becomes obstacles for why we do what we do. So everything that has happened to those who love us, who touch us in ways, results in creating a myth in our life. And that myth lodges itself, and it could be something as you are unworthy, you are unwanted, it's your fault for everything that goes wrong in the world. Or, and I am so not any person that is involved with the horror going down between Israel and Palestine. And I have witnessed enough of humans slaughtering each other for justice, when in actuality, it is the pain and suffering that drills down into a fear of, if I don't do something to fight back for what was done to me, what does that make me? It makes me vulnerable to hurt and pain again.
That's good.
That is my take on it. I am in a state of unforgiveness because I am so afraid of opening myself up to further hurt. How's that?
And that goes on for generations, right? That's, I think,
for
why
generations.
we're seeing the, Israeli-Palestine conflict, is because there is so much. I mean, we're talking literally thousands of years, generational hatred, generational blame. And again, when there is no forgiveness, there's no way to move forward. But I liked that you touched on the vulnerability needed to do so.
So
Mike?
It kind of does boil down to our identity then, right? Like,
Yes.
We have to know who we are. And if we don't know who we are, then we're going to live out of the system of who we aren't, which includes not forgiving. Because in my world, if I see myself as one with the Trinity, then I am by nature a forgiving person. So what's hindering me? What's stopping me from forgiving? Or maybe even more, what does forgiveness actually mean? Because Anna, when you said you're in a state of unforgiveness right now, I need to be reminded myself of what forgiveness is and isn't. The both, because I think forgiveness is simpler. I didn't say it was easy. It's simpler than we think. And what's not simple or easy about it is a misconception of it. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
In my opinion.
So tell us exactly what it is.
Let me read this first. I want to share. This is like, seriously, this is the one part, because this is a journey. And I call it the journey of understanding what forgiveness is and isn't, and it will come in stages. So let me just put this on the screen. Share screen. This cool gadget you got here.
Right?
Yeah. All right. So here it is. The journey, is it coming on? Here we go. The journey of understanding what forgiveness is and isn't will come in stages. I'll just read a bunch of slides, and then I'll turn it off. But at one level, a child level, we will have a form of understanding, a simple level, and perhaps with definitions and charts or boxes that will help us move to the next stage. Then the next stage is kind of a young adult stage. We come with intense emotions, ups and downs of circumstances, individual subjective definitions and resistance. But in this stage, we wrestle with the fine tuning of discovering what forgiveness is and isn't. It's the school of hard knocks. It's a stage of moving from dogmatic opinions and rationale to more fluid, mystical awareness that there may be more to forgiveness than we may have been told. The final stage, adult stage, is the recognition of what it takes to journey through all the stages. That what you once believed as a child is not the same thing you believed as a young adult. And what you believed as a young adult is not the same thing you now believe as an adult. The fists of belief are not clenched tight anymore.
I love that.
The hand is now open, flat, offering wisdom of the Holy Spirit to put in or take out anything that still needs to be adjusted in our understanding. This final stage doesn't end. Instead, it is one of intense width, height, and depth. There's no way, to fully explain the mystery you have been exposed to, except maybe wonder, awe. Oh my goodness, I didn't see that coming. This is why it's important. We need to let individuals journey their own stages without having to point out they may not see things as you see or as I may see them. We need to listen and walk along with folks who see things differently, not as one who is the mentor, but rather as the one who's a co-sojourner, not above them, not below them, but as equals who rely on the same source of revelation as it's given out. This will reduce our judging of one another. This will reduce our expectations of one another. And lastly, this will increase our capacity to just agape without conditions fully of each other.
I love that.
That's different, eh?
Yes.
So, yeah. And I think that
it's a lot. I know there's a whole lot there, but it summarizes forgiveness is much more than just one spoke.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and go ahead, Anna.
It's an archaeological dig, isn't
Yes.
it? In order to find out what it is that the reason why you can't forgive, aside from that, from just, well, they did this to me, it's their fault, I don't deserve it, which may be true. You still have to journey into, why is this impacting me the way it is?
Yeah.
And then what have I learned, or what did I learn that rooted this experience and knowledge and emotion in me that resulted in feeling this pissed off or this afraid of what somebody did to me? And even further too, do I even understand why somebody did this to me? And then even further to, I am not a horrible person for not being able to forgive immediately or even at all in my lifetime, because it is a journey that you never stop. You might rest. You might have to circle back a few times. It's a journey that doesn't end. And as you were saying it, as you were talking, I started hearing those voices in my head, those myths, so to speak, of, well, if you had faith in God, you would forgive. If you were blessed, you would forgive. If you were a true Christian, you would forgive. If you know, go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
When it comes down to, I have a deep-seated wound and wounds, because if I don't take one, it just builds up over and over and over, that weren't healed. And so I have to I have to dig my way down to that very first one.
And that's helpful with a therapist, right? A therapist is a great person for that.
Yes. You do not do this on your own. Just
or
like
on
you
Facebook.
don't operate on yourself. No. Well, I will offer a caveat to that I personally, I'm not going to speak for everybody, I personally have found a supportive community where if I do need somebody to say, hey, I'm going through this really crappy thing, I want to know that somebody hears me.
Yeah.
Right. And what
it's
I'm
something for me that I need.
Yes.
I need to know that I matter.
Yeah. Now, what I meant by
thing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I meant by not on Facebook, I mean, some people just blast Facebook and post stuff, just are too raw and unfiltered, and they bleed over everyone. But what you're talking about is an actual realistic support and people. That part's true. It's just some people just, they kind of bleed on everyone and haven't gone to the hospital yet. It's like, really?
Yeah. I actually got into a debate with a Facebook friend, and she was adamant that she would never forgive certain people. And that was, I think, part of the catalyst for this show, because she could not see any benefit in it whatsoever. She could not see any justification. And she believed that if she forgave, then that would absolve the perpetrators.
But that's the misunderstanding.
Exactly.
Like somebody has to pay for what they did to me, when that's not it at all. That doesn't provide the healing.
No, because
forgiveness is not absolution. Forgiveness is not absolution. Forgiveness is not unification. Forgiveness is solely for yourself.
Bingo.
To be able to help yourself cope in the days in life. I mean, when I talk to people who refuse to forgive, I can feel their pain. I can hear it. I can feel it. And it's something that they just will not let go of. And it might be a vulnerability. It might be a fear. It might be, again, not willing to let that person be absolved of their crimes. But that's not what forgiveness is. Mike,
no, they're not
tell
connected.
us what forgiveness is.
Well, let me just throw this on the screen because I was a little prepared. But I think forgiveness, if we can dig into this a little bit, I think we're going to find some hope. But with forgive, if you want to go in the church world, there's an obedience factor. We're told we must forgive, but we're not. It's not defined well enough for us. So, but the second thing I have on my slide is we forgive for our own sake. It's for us. It's for our healing. Forgiveness is not for the one who did us wrong, but it's for us. Yes. It's to set me free from this person and what they've done, and it's not easy. That's huge. When
you forgive, that pain no longer controls you. When you forgive, that crime no longer controls you.
Yep.
And until you're willing to let that go of their control, of your control, of the outcome, forgiveness is really hard.
I think forgiveness. It is hard. I think we can each of us have a horrific situation in our head where we'll say we won't forgive somebody. But I think at the core, the foundation level of what forgiveness is, we can forgive. Because if we detach misunderstandings that it requires to re-enter a relationship with somebody, that's not one of the requirements of forgiveness.
Yeah.
So forgiveness is releasing them. It's like letting their hand off their throat. So you can actually get some rest from your arms because you've been hanging on so long, you know.
So how do you do that?
It means
me.
Okay, go, Anna.
I love you, Mike. Forgive me. So
I have to.
As an example that I recently had back when I was in the military, shortly after 9/11, going into a hostile, dangerous, wasn't sure I'd leave situation. As the lone female, a male handed me a weapon that was, no kidding, rusted shut. Could not be opened. Now, he didn't know that I was a marksman. He didn't know that I was leading this mission. He just saw the female.
Yep.
When it came down to it, and I was face down on the ground being fired upon with no weapon, I was scared, fear, I was pissed, anger, and I did not see a way out of it. What I realized just recently is that I heard God after I said, well, you know, I can pick weapon parts off of dead bodies and I can put one together. I know how to do that. I heard God tell me, you are well equipped. I would not send you anywhere without equipping you to survive. Now, what I also realized, that doesn't mean survive and stay alive. That was survive in that moment to keep moving forward. And it was that that allowed me to move forward. That did not make me forgive, but it put me in a position where I could see I'm okay, I'm safe, and I can move. I can acknowledge what a crappy situation this was and how much it scared me.
Yeah.
Down the road, like I said, most recently, I understood, regardless of what that jackwagon did, I was well equipped. I just had to realize that I had options and I had choices, and none of them may have been the one I would have given myself, and they were there still. Once I realized and let go of that control that that person had, or I thought I had given him to over my life, because that's what actually scared me. This person that I don't know has control over whether I will live or die. That's not true. And that's what I had to realize. He had no control over me. The situation was just a situation. I had to make a determination what to do next. And now, 20 some years later, I have the same choice to put that baggage down of thinking that he had control over me and my actions.
Wow.
He did not. Does that make sense? Does that help?
That's a huge revelation.
Love that.
One thing I want, before we get to your question, Mike, I want to piggyback off of what Anna said. One of a similar occurrence, but not really, where I didn't think I had the strength to do what needed to be done. And I had nobody. I was abandoned. And in thinking about how hard it is to forgive that, I thought of, Anna, you touched on it with the blessings and you being okay. It's really hard to forgive when you're still not okay, right? I mean, when, because I was thinking, well, if everything worked out, someday, then I would be like, okay, we both needed that, I guess. You learned, I learned. I mean, really reaching into my higher self. But if things don't work out, if things, you don't become that bigger person, you still need to forgive, but it's so much harder. It's so much harder to not blame, to not say you're the reason I'm in this situation. You could have done this, you. How do you find within you the strength to release that grip of the implications of their actions? I guess would be the right word.
Go, Mike, because I'm home and I got to log on. So go. I'm sorry. I love you. I got to log on, so that's why.
Are you gonna come back on video now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool, excellent.
See you in a second, Anna.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Quick, let's talk about her before she's back.
Yeah, right.
I heard that.
Oops. So that actually, that conversation and this whole idea with Israel and Palestine right now, with Hamas anyway, made me realize that we can talk about this topic of forgiveness, but every moment is not always the right time to talk about forgiveness, because in certain moments you're dealing with survival, you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with horror, you're dealing with all kinds of emotions that you're not ready to talk about forgiveness. I think the actual mature conversations about forgiveness come in a quieter place or after, sometimes years later, because otherwise there's a guilt or false guilt that we can sense that, I ought to be forgiving, I need to be forgiving. Anna was saying that earlier, or you even were saying, am I a good person doing this? Or if it works out, then fine, forgiveness is easy. But maybe in the heart of serious crisis, it's the wrong topic to bring up because it leaves out so many details. Like I'm just thinking of the war right now, because you can pick your war, right? I like the posts you've been putting on, Sheri, where about violence. There's no room for it, and it's horrible. And I put a post up yesterday that this isn't about cheering for one side or the other. Or I stand with them. I think that's dualism. That's a false way to to look at the situation. Somebody else wrote, "I'm for the innocent." Said, okay, that's a much safer, better way to see what's going on, right?
Exactly.
So we're not talking about forgiveness in the middle of this crisis, unless there's a mature person who has hit a place that they are walking, continually forgiving, even though, you know, that I don't know anybody like that. You know, so I want to be careful that we're not trying to attain a level of maturity. Even though I talked about the child, young adult, adult, that is a long lifetime journey, and you might hit adult moments when you're young, and then slip back to other new situation, and you're learning to process something new because we've never been there before. We've never faced these crises. But these conversations, talking with people that have gone through hell and back and are still processing, hearing how they're journeying, how they're understanding this topic, we need more of that, because I think this topic is one of the biggest topics. Identity, grief, and forgiveness, to me, are the top topics that every person deals with. So
I mean, and if you don't forgive, you turn out to be, forgive my gender role, that angry old man on the grass screaming, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah.
I mean, I see elderly people who still have all of that rage, and again, a lot of it's because it's still going on. Yeah. I mean, in my family, there's been chaos for 40 years, and that is breeding generational division. You know, when the acts keep happening, it prevents forgiveness because there's no chance to heal. You know, but we are a shell of a person. We cannot walk in love without that forgiveness, without knowing that, hey, this is our intention. And I think that's also a big point, is that you can, just intending to forgive is the right step forward, right?
Yes.
Like if you, like, I'm still holding on to this,
but where does that come from?
I hope to forgive.
But where does that come from? Love. Right? What's the source of, exactly? And it's already in you. So at one core level, you are already a forgiving person and have forgiven at one level, but you are not aware of it yet. Like,
no, I'm a very forgiving person. I really am. I mean,
but you know what I mean?
To default. Yeah.
Because even that person who says, I will never forgive. And I know a lot of people who have said that about pains that have been done to them. And you know what? On this side of the quantum leap, you may not forgive. But I think on the other side, when we see far more clearly, there will be a wave of love hitting us, like a fire of refining love that will purge away anything that was never of love's kind, and it's gone. And we'll have forgiven, but in a very different place of mind too. So you may not on this side. I don't know.
Well, I think that, and again, with this war in the Middle East right now, one of the things that has been out there is motive, right? It happens with murder trials, theft, you know, all kinds of trials. What is someone's motivation for hurting you? Welcome back, Anna.
Hey.
Let me see your face. So, I forgot what I was saying.
Now we have to say nice things about her.
I know. Okay.
I will work on forgiving you even if you said bad things. How's that?
Motive. So if we understand why someone has done something, that is a lot easier to forgive. You know, when you're, and I think that's part of the thing, when you go into the other realm, you're able to see why people did the things they did. And at least for me, that is something that builds empathy. You know, why did someone hurt me? Well, because they were hurt. Okay, that's a cop out. Why? I'm a big why person. So if someone says, what's that?
I have a story for you.
But if someone says, you know, oh my God, they never learned to love. They were raised in foster care. They were beaten as a child. They, you know, all of the pain that they had that caused them to lash out. Often that empathy invokes forgiveness, right? When you realize it wasn't about you, it was about them. All of those things help you lean into forgiving.
But
right?
that understanding does not define forgiveness, right? That is that in and of itself is not forgiveness. Otherwise, there's a sense of letting people off the hook. There's an injustice connected to it. They hurt you. Own it. Like if you don't call it out for what it is, because sometimes we're trying to cover it up. We're not trying to own it. We're trying to make it softer and nicer so it's easier for us to deal with. But really, they treat us like crap. And so to learn how to acknowledge the pain, because you can't forgive what you won't acknowledge. Okay? Really important. Otherwise, you're playing games with yourself. And so to acknowledge that pain is the beginning of it. And you can forgive a person quietly, privately, between you and God only, and tell no one. Right? And only then, by the way,
and still have the same effects.
Yes, you still got the feelings, you still got the pain, you still got to wrestle through the healing.
Yeah.
But I think you can enter a faster healing process when you come to a place internally and say, I forgive. I've taught a whole course on this.
Oh yeah.
And it's intense, but there's all these layers. That's why this is not a quick one-off topic. There's a lot of spokes in this wheel. And because one spoke will lead to another spoke, right? Like there's a whole bunch here. They're all interconnected, and we're not going to cover them all. It's just too big.
I like to think of it in a nebula sort of way, that there is no straight, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and congratulations, you've reached the finish line. As you said, sometimes everything is so wrapped up into everything else, especially if there's multi-generational trauma, especially if you love somebody who hurt you, because that's a whole other layer, or if you feel obligated to love someone and obligated to forgive them, that's another whole layer, because somewhere underneath all that obligation is a trauma saying you're not allowed to feel hurt and angry. You're not allowed. And that in itself that's a trauma.
Yep.
That's something that you carry.
Well, it's a denial of your trauma, which just adds to it.
So let me say that one of the triggers for this topic, and if I can use the word ticks me off royally, is the churchianity concept that the Bible says plainly we have to forgive, therefore forgive. And the teacher takes two kids who are fighting in the classroom, forces them to shake hands, forces them to lie to each other and say, I'm sorry, right? Like, what are they teaching? So this whole Christianese concept of you must, and there's a fear of hell, because you have a fire behind your head there. The fear of this, right? There's a fear associated that if you don't, God's going to get you, and it's all misconceptions. But that's the fire sale that the church has done, and it's not fair. When really forgiveness is about putting you on the pathway to freedom.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. Right there, Mike. Wow. Yeah. Because it is so freeing. I mean, once that pain, once that person, once that event no longer controls you, no longer has that power over you. And a good sign is it no longer makes you cry, right? That when you're starting to heal and you can talk about it and not start crying, that is the path to freedom.
Can I share 2 more slides?
Of course. While you're getting that ready, I want to also stress, Beth said this. How hard it is when that person hasn't asked for forgiveness.
Yes. So that's another myth too.
Yeah.
Because you do not have to wait for a person to ask. That's baloney.
Yeah. I mean, what I meant was understanding the why does not equate to them acknowledging the why.
Correct. And I'm going to talk about the why today too, if we have time. So let me get this. Oh, here it is. Okay. Forgiving will put you on the path to freedom. If you don't forgive, it will cripple you.
Yes.
Like a cancer.
And kill you. They've done bodily. Yeah. They
absolutely.
Really
it affects you physically. I talked about that in a whole bunch of stuff. When you don't forgive, you begin to destroy everything you hold dear, your spouse, your children, your work, your loved ones, your friends. If you cling to unforgiveness, then you cannot love your family, spouse, family that Christ designed you as. Like, this is a big one. So these 2 things have freed me to understand forgiveness better. That forgiveness is an event and a process. Okay, it's 2 things. It's not just one thing. that they have
It's
done.
not a one-time event either.
That's not a one-time event. So
Yeah.
the act of forgiving is the event, but walking out that forgiveness is a process, and it could take you years and years. In fact, you may one day, God gives you the strength to, I forgive, between you and I forgive, and you may have to say that 20 times that day. You may have to say it 20, 25 times a day for the next week or two. But in a couple of weeks, you can only say it 15 times. Like, it's just, who knows, right? It's not a quick, fast, one stop and there you've done it.
Go, Anna, go.
As you were talking, as you were saying that, I had all these questions come rushing to me from my kids and from other people saying, well, I don't understand why this group of people can't just get over it and forgive. Well, I can't understand if it was me, I would forgive. This is all about you.
Yes.
As a person, as the individual. Nobody, not even God, thank you, God, not even God can tell you or make you will forgive this person right now.
Mm-mm.
No, because it is a deconstruction, it is a reconstruction, totally. It is ripping all the pages out of your book after you've reread them, and it is rewriting. This is who I am. And yes, you were impacted by other people, and you yourself, you have this self-determining aspect within you 100%. To say, I will start to forgive my way with the people I choose to surround me as I forgive. And if it doesn't include the jackwagons who hurt me, whether it's a country, whether it's a gender, whether it's a group, whether it's take your pick, that is my business. Mm-hmm. No one else's.
Yeah, because what you're doing otherwise, you're judging.
Yes.
Right? So you're spending all your energy on judging, and we're not supposed to, because that's us playing God, and it's not our role. So when it's just on us, and it's very personal, you suddenly take away a lot of ammunition for why you can't.
Yes.
The blame.
Yep.
Yes.
So this, the why question, I got, oh man. So I love why questions too, right? So I was deeply.
Let me just put an endstone or capstone
Mm-hmm.
to that last one. There are days when I am strong spiritually and I can forgive. And then the next day I'm in tears going, why'd they do that to me again? Mm-hmm. So that is part of the process, because yes. When I am spiritually strong and confident, that comes easy. But when life starts getting on me and maybe I'm not feeling well, maybe I didn't sleep, maybe I had horrific dreams, those types of days make it really, really difficult to forgive. I think as long as that intention is still there and it still remains as part of the goal and the process and stuff like that, you're still walking in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why?
I had an individual that it was probably one of the bigger hurts in my life, not the abuse stuff that happened years ago, but something in the last 10 years. And it was huge. And it was a violation. It was a betrayal, really, really hurtful thing. And so I forgave, and I authentically did, because I knew in me, I needed to, just for myself, I had to release this. We're not talking, and that's fine. I don't need to, I don't want to, but I always had the why question. Why did they treat me like, why this? Why couldn't they have done it? How could they possibly? And I had all these why questions. And so 2 years ago, I'm at this football game with a buddy of mine. And I'm watching the kick about to go off there, and I say, "Oh my!" And I'm telling my buddy about this, and I say, "Yeah, just but why?" And suddenly it hit me as the ball's kicked. It was like the Holy Spirit inside said, "You know what? When you ask me to forgive you, I know I ask too. Why? Why'd you do that, Mike? Why? What was your motive? Why didn't you see it my way?" Like it all hit me. It's like, wait a minute. God doesn't even do that. So why am I playing the why question? Because it's a control thing. I want to justify. I want to understand.
I resemble that remark.
I know. But when I realized it in that moment, here's something different that happened to me. Forgiveness came to me in a fresher way that I never saw possible. And that's happened to me 2 or 3 times in my life. And these are markers on my pathway for this forgiveness journey. But that was one of them. That's where it came to me. I could not have asked and researched and learned. It happened in the moment.
Grace.
And I don't have to ask the why anymore, or need to know. Why do I need to know? Because there's a control freak flesh in us. We want to know. I know. So
well, take a look at
Hard one.
for the
Yeah,
most
you got
of
me on
us,
that one.
for the Christians around us who were taught knowledge is what crippled you. We want to know because we want to know. Just like in the garden, we want to know because God graced us with the wonder.
Curiosity.
With the wonder and the curiosity, because it helps inform us. And at some point, when the why doesn't serve you, you need to be able to put it down. Yes. Because and I was wrestling in my head, and Sheri vocalized what I was feeling, because in my head I was like, I like asking why. I want to know why. And why do I want to know why? Somewhere inside is an inherent aspect of us. Because if we stop asking questions, we stop growing. And there are some whys that aren't ours. I heard a sermon where the bishop was talking about, why didn't my mountain move? And he gave so many things, and there was one that stuck with me, that was, maybe it's just not your mountain. Walk away from it. And that was, like you said, that was a freedom to say, this isn't my mountain. And sometimes the molehills can be the ones that trip us up. High enough mountains, the molehills that we don't see in our journey to forgive us, can drop us flat on our face, and we have to start all over again. So I want to push back a little bit, that why isn't necessarily bad, and understanding when why doesn't serve you in your journey, you need to be able to let it go.
Yeah.
For me,
I want to offer that.
Absolutely. Because even in mine, I had been, that was a hindrance in me. And that's when I had to give up for that situation. So why is still important? Absolutely.
Well, and for me, that is the pathway to empathy. So if, it's like, my friends appreciate that I have this innate ability to see all sides of a situation. So they call me and go, why is my boyfriend or my husband doing this? And I'd be like, well, this is probably why. If I understand why, if I know why they're doing these awful things or hurtful things, that's a path to empathy for me. Go, okay, there's screwed up. I have to watch my language on this show because I'm going to be airing it. He's making me break my own rules. They screwed up because they are screwed up. Yeah. So, I mean, while I totally resonate with the control factor, because I admitted years ago that I'm a control freak, that is the one, almost like a fishing line, like, okay, can I get that to try and build some empathy out of the pain, out of the anger? If I can switch that to empathy because of the why, that's a really easy thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Not knowing why, my brain just goes usually to the worst thing.
The why allows me to look for the tool that is the how. And then that allows me to get my metaphorical heart calendar that says the when. And then I can circle back to the why and say, because I want to love me.
Yeah.
And so that in your process, Mike, for me, that's my little toolbox. Why allows me to set kind of like a parameter for the how. How do I get to this. Why leads me to a how. I can get rid of the why. I can start to look at the when, and then circle back to the why, because I matter, because I love me, because I'm worth it, because of the wonderful things he does, right?
It's like a Disney song.
Yeah, and by the way, audience, my favorite heckler, Mike, is heckling us backstage in private chats.
Right?
I'm glad you noticed that.
So he's singing YMCA. He's singing Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Ain't No Valley.
Sorry.
So you can bring the heckler on the show.
You missed me. You missed me. That's funny.
So I have a question for you, Mike.
Okay.
And I have
Can I interrupt real quick?
what I feel.
But real quick, Anna?
Yes.
We may never get the why. And that's one thing that we have to accept.
Yes.
Right.
And that actually that segues into the big question, the question that can feel so insurmountable, especially now, especially when wars happen, and wars have been going on forever and ever, amen. When wars happen, how can you expect me to forgive the slaughter, the genocide, the wiping out of everyone I know? And it doesn't matter who that question comes from, because that question always comes.
Yep.
Take it away.
What was the question? Really?
I forgot.
So I think
How do you
that
forgive in times of chaos?
Yes.
well, just the very top of the private messages, the whole idea of when you got some really big mountains like that people have questions about, some are never answered in this lifetime, because the only glimmers of an answer I've seen for some of the toughest questions come from the most spiritual mystics that I know. And they're not even clear, but they're pointing to an answer that gives me peace to know the one who is the answer has an answer, but I can't understand it right now. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. Yes. And I'm not going to find trite answers.
Joe doesn't like that though, Mike. The ego starts going, no. That control thing again.
Yeah. I just think we got to be careful not to try and give answers that are trite.
Correct.
Answers that are too quick, or Christianese, which drive me nuts. But back to this forgiveness thing, I believe people need to know there is hope. You can forgive, and the things that are hindering you from forgiving are usually myths and misunderstandings. They're not the real reason to forgive. So
like this one I want to throw in there. Tony, don't mean to call you out, but no. In order to create heaven here on earth, we have to forgive.
That's a myth we were told.
Into a heaven.
But we're told that. We're not going to get to heaven if we have somebody unforgiven sin, or we haven't forgiven somebody. We're not going to take communion. We're not going to get to heaven.
We're going to live in hell as long as that's the case.
But we're living in it now.
That's what I mean. Right now, that creates a hell here on earth that we don't even need to worry about the afterlife.
The good news is Jesus took care of the forgiveness issues. He didn't even need the cross to do it. Yeah. Right? So he forgave without the cross. He was on it. He said, forgive them. He forgave people before the cross. So we have been forgiven. That is non-negotiable truth. So the idea of getting to heaven, don't let that be a stumbling block. Some religion told you that, not Jesus.
Or, I mean, even that makes the quest insurmountable at that point. It makes it so huge that you can't deal with the minutia right now, and makes it go, well, God's going to hate me. I actually just got into it with someone because of that type of language. To say, no, God doesn't hate you, and saying that God is disappointed on you could literally send someone off the bridge.
Yep.
Those types.
It has.
Totally. You forgive for you, not for God. I mean, God tells us to, but it really boils, like I always say in every show, onus. It's on us. And in order to free ourselves, our heart, not end up sick and mean and angry, forgiveness is that path.
And then she offered a parable.
Okay.
and this is for Tony, because I was taught that as well, and that literally almost sent me to my death. And I passed that guilt on to my children, and they almost went to their deaths. And that right there, my children, I can see this as not heaven and love, divine love. What I hold for my children, and I hope folks are getting this metaphorical here. I hold for my children unconditional love. And I never realized that until I had children, until I felt the pain and the fear and everything involved in seeing this new life. And I want to caveat this with, I have 3 adopted children. And while that love is not the same love that I have for my biological children, I love my adopted children.
Of course.
And so, Tony, heaven for me is the verb and the space and the place of love that I hold within me. And when my child tried to kill me, I never stopped loving him. And that is not easy. Sheri can tell you, it is a minute by minute, moment by moment, second by second work to love. And it is love. Regardless of what he did, I love him. And while I'm not there at the forgiveness place, on the side of love, in other words, will he ever be able to get back into my heart? He never left. And I want to repeat that. He never left. So almost 2 years later, he just started talking back to me because of the guilt and shame he felt about almost killing me, and the pain that I had reemerging from past myths that, well, I must have deserved that in some way. My love never stopped. And if he walked through the door today, it would be so damn difficult to try to connect that bridge again, because it takes work. And the love was always there. It just has to be reauthored between the two of us. How are we going to do this? And we do that, going back to the God in heaven thing, we do that with God. How do I reauthor my connection to you, God? Because I'm afraid you don't love me anymore. And so the journey that we take towards that is a journey we take together with God, just like he is taking a journey with me. We're physically separated. And it is still a journey we take together. I have not left. I won't leave. God has never left. God won't leave. Love has never left. Love won't need. It's just finding your way back into that piece of heaven. You never left heaven. You are still in heaven, because God, love, divine love, agape, is all of that. You just have to find your way to see it and to realize it and to accept it.
You actually
feel
said
like you're worthy.
You just said something really powerful with, you still love him no matter what, right? That is, in fact, forgiveness. That is literally forgiveness. What's difficult, likely in if I'm going to read between the lines, is the reconciliation and restoration. That's a whole different topic. Right? But that truest form of love that you just talked about, that is what forgiveness looks like, because love keeps no record of wrongs. We do,
The ego does, the mind does, but love doesn't.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the body keeps the scars.
Yep.
And it is a process.
Even the cells in your body remember.
Yes.
The cells in my body are making my eyes leak.
Yes. And it's not easy.
No, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yes.
No, it is really, really, really hard. But all healing is, right? I mean, letting go of that control, letting go of things the way that you wanted them to be and how you dreamed. I mean, there's so many layers of harm that forgiveness needs to take control
And grief.
of. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
when you were talking about the stages, I was thinking of the 5 stages of grief. And
Yes.
even those, I mean, they go in an order in the book, but they're like this.
They're all, yes.
There's
Oh, it's
7 of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The 5 is the short list. 7 is the deeper one. And you're right. It's like a
We know
pinball
that I've
machine.
gotten to 5.
If there's a pinball machine and they don't go in any order. There's
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. So I hope that gives you an opportunity to wonder, Tony, about that, because it's not your answer, and my answer isn't your answer. I hope that gives you room to wonder what that looks and feels like for you.
Well, we need to stop focusing on the afterlife and start really focusing on the lives that we are creating here,
What a
because
neat
our
idea.
love, forgiveness, all of that matters now. Once you're dead, we don't know. We really don't know. So let's stop worrying about the afterlife and let's focus on loving our neighbor and forgiving them as best as we possibly can for our own peace.
Love it.
Okay, we're at the top.
I see that.
I'm not ready to end this conversation yet.
Man.
Okay. This was a powerful one again. And of course, this time I don't have tissue with me. So
That's what you're
normally I have a
screaming
box
for.
of tissue here, and I knew that this time. You know, right? I'm sure.
Yeah. This is where the rubber hits the road, though, because for all of the feistiness that individuals have in public, or they're trying to stay strong or look strong or have this persona they're trying to live up to, or an ego, when it comes to the core of who we are and we're in a lone place and we come to a place of contemplation, this is the stuff of real life that's
Yes.
internal. And we don't talk about it enough. And we need safer places to have that. And like Anna was saying, she has a group that she can reach out to. I've got a few friends I can reach out to too. And if I really had to, I know you guys are folks that I could reach out to if I need to talk to somebody, that I don't have to lay out a big, long counseling session. I know I'm going to get loved.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this is a really important point, although we've run out of time to
exactly.
do it. So,
That's right.
Mike, give me some December dates when you're available. And Anna, let's do a show on how to forgive yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Because that is a major step in forgiveness. I don't know that, just like you can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself, I don't know that you can truly forgive others if you haven't forgiven yourself. And
oh my goodness.
For me, self-forgiveness is a tough one. There's a song that out there that says, I am a black belt when it comes to myself, beating up on myself, but I can love everyone else, you know?
Don't you hate it that we're still growing up?
Oh my God, adults
Hate it. It's like, come on.
Oh my God, I can't believe I wanted this as a kid.
We are cyclic. It is what creation is about. The cycle of becoming and dying and becoming and dying and becoming and dying.
Rebirth throughout our entire life.
It is how we are created and recreated.
Do you know what I heard recently, which I thought was really cool? It's totally off topic, but it's fun. It's like, I forget where it was, but this pain of this life, we're actually in a womb.
Yes.
We're in a womb now. The birth is still coming. Real life is coming. It's like, so it just made me think. It just put some things in perspective.
Yes. So we will continue this conversation at these two's next availability. This was a phenomenal show. Mike, final thoughts, and where can people find you?
YouTube, Mike Zenker, Facebook. But yep, I just want to tell people there is hope. You can forgive. The one who is life and light in you is the forgiver, and you've been equipped to. find your way there. In fact, that light is calling to you. You can hear it. You just try not to ignore it too much.
Thank you so much. I love you guys. Anna, any final words, and where can people find you?
I don't know if I can ever be found. I'm still looking for myself.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
I do want to let folks know about the book, because it does have exercises in there.
What
and
book?
Recalling our own stories, spiritual renewal for religious caregivers. However, it doesn't have to be just for religious babas. Anybody can use it. It has exercises about trying to drill down into the myths of your life, and that can start the process. And just like Mike said, you cannot do this alone. It is your individual journey, and you cannot do it alone. You are meant to be with.
Can you put that link in the bottom after the show?
I was going to say,
I am.
Go ahead and
I will
message me that, and then when I upload all the information onto YouTube, I can include that link too.
I will.
It's behind, but it's
yes,
there.
I will. And that's it.
Okay. You guys, I love you both so much. Thank you for being that support for me and honoring me so that I can be that support for you. I'm going to send you backstage, and we will talk in the VIP. See you in a minute.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Another great show. Forgiveness is hard. Life is hard, right? But forgiveness is the key to happiness. It's not absolving anyone from their crimes against you. It's not allowing anyone to hurt you. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's enabling that self-love to not be hurt again, but to say, I deserve more, and I hope that you do too. Okay. I love learning new things, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this. If you like the show, share it, subscribe, all that good stuff.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. There was a whole bunch of different spokes in the wheel that we covered on that conversation about what and why forgiveness is important. So I hope you had an enjoyable time listening, and if you liked it, share it with others. Check out the links below to find more of Sheri's stuff, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time on Still Growing in Grace. Let me find the exit here, because we are done, and it was a good program. So thank you, Sheri, thank you, Anna, for that really awesome conversation, and I hope it benefited all those that are listening and watching, and hopefully you'll rewatch and share. We'll see you next time. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace for more good news. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. You can also visit hopefellowshipycc.com to find our service times and location. If this show has been an encouragement to you, please consider making a donation today at growingingrace.ca and help us keep spreading this good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.